Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 7th webinar in our series by the European Delegation to Canada. I'm Esther Huerta Garcia, Project Manager at the EU Delegation, and it's really great to be here today. So why this webinar? Since January 2025, we have hosted webinars to support Canadian participation in Horizon Europe. Canada officially joined as an associated country in July 2024, unlocking exciting opportunities to collaborate with Europe on cutting-edge research and innovation. So far, we've presented 6 webinars covering the 6 Horizon Europe clusters. These recordings are available on the EU Delegation's YouTube channel, so feel free to catch up anytime. A quick overview. Horizon Europe is the EU's 93.5 billion research program running until 2027. The first call round closed in September, and we're looking forward to the new work program for 2026-2027, launching in January, which will bring fresh funding opportunities. Starting now, we're focusing on technical webinars. Today's session is the first in this series designed to help you prepare strong proposals and navigate the application process. So thanks for joining us. We are here to support Canada-EU collaboration and can't wait to see the innovative projects you will develop together. Please don't hesitate to ask questions and engage throughout the session. I will now give the floor to Agnieszka, who will be moderating the event. Please, Agnieszka.
Hello, everyone. My name is Agnieszka Weiner, and I'm the team leader of EU-Canada Policy Dialogue Support Facility, who is organizing this event, supporting the European Union delegation to Canada, in partnership with the Horizon Europe Secretariat based at Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada. So without further ado, I wanted to present the webinar to you, just explaining the basic rules. So today's webinar will be focused on the practicalities of going through the work programs, preparing the proposals, but we will also hear from a speaker who represents the Canadian Research Institution. So we are very excited to be able to give you not only the practicalities of writing, but also the practicalities of the institutional support. I would like to start with our first speaker, Tamara Stone, who is the NCP coordinator for Horizon Europe at ISET, and who has been very supportive of these webinars, and who will now tell you everything you need to know, where to go and whom to ask if you are a Canadian researcher, business, institution interested in participating in Horizon Europe. Tamara, please.
Thank you very much, Agnieszka. So before I get started, yes, my name is Tamara Stone. I'm the National Contact Point Coordinator for Canada. Thank you very much for the introduction. I work at Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, also known as ISED. But before I get started, I would like to acknowledge that living in the Ottawa-Gatineau region, I am on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. I wish to also recognize that we all work in different locations. Therefore, you're probably working on different Indigenous lands that have been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. The Indigenous peoples are the traditional stewards of the lands and waters where each of us are meeting today. I encourage you to take a moment to think about which territory you are on today. Also, before I get started, I would like to indicate, as probably mentioned, this webinar will be in English, but there is a opportunity through Zoom for simultaneous translation in the language of your choice. Moving now to my presentation. So I'm working at the part of the Secretariat, the Horizon Europe Secretariat for Canada. I'm the National Contact Point Coordinator, and Next slide. We provide many opportunities for Canadians to help them understand this extremely complex program. So the national contact points, what are they? Well, they are the main structure to provide guidance, practical information, and assistance on participation in Horizon Europe. They're the subject matter experts in their field, have a strong awareness of domestic and international expertise in their cluster. Next slide, please. So in addition to national contact points, people always ask us where to find partners and collaborators. So in addition to national contact points, we recommend that you start with your own network. You can participate in information days in Brussels or virtually. There are opportunities, and there'll be more coming up in the coming months and weeks. There is also the funding and tenders portal. There is a partner search tool to help you find partners. Again, there's also the European Enterprise Network, EEN, or the ECCIR in Canada. That is there is a network there especially designed for SMEs to help find partners as well. In addition, Cordis is an excellent website. It is the EU's database to help find of all previous projects. So it's a great resource because you can then do a subject matter search in Cordis and find out who worked on projects in your field. And there is even better, a place in Cordis where you can reach out to the coordinators and other participants and ask if they would be interested in participating in future projects. In addition to the national contact points, which I'll be talking about shortly, there is the Global Affairs Canada Trade Commissioner Service. They are located in countries throughout the world and in Europe. And there is this website here can help you find the contact in the country that you are looking to work with in particular. Of course, there's research publications and industry associations. So between all these resources, we can help guide you and help you find partners to work together on your projects. Next slide, please. So in Canada, we have NCPs for each cluster. So my name is the coordinator, but we have NCPs for each of the clusters, some in many cases more than one. And so I recommend that you reach out to those NCPs in the clusters of your interest, and they can help guide you. Next slide, please. And there's even more. So these are all on our website as well. Next slide, please. So here's some useful links and contacts. We have a website that we update regularly. So if you want more information about Horizon Europe, we have a dedicated website. And if you want to keep up to date on the latest Horizon Europe events, you can sign up for our newsletter. If you have a general query, so if it's not specific to a particular cluster, you don't even know where to start, you can go to our Horizon Europe inbox at horizoneurope@ised.gc.ca. Thank you. Next slide. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I hope that the rest of the webinar goes well. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. It is really appreciated. So now we start the webinar with the first speaker. Just to clarify, please do not hesitate and ask questions in the Q&A chat. So the participant chat is disabled, but you can ask the questions in the Q&As and we will be answering them as we go. Mostly in writing, maybe some of them we will answer live at the end of the session. Do not hesitate in any case. And as Tamara said, that there is an option to have the captions in the language of your choice in Zoom. So please do not hesitate to use that either. I would like to invite now our speaker, our expert, Maria Pawłowska. who will present and who will guide us through the process of reading, understanding, and transforming the work program ideas in Horizon Europe to a workable proposal. Maria is our expert in Horizon Europe proposal writing. She joins us from Nova Scotia. She comes with a wealth of experience in the European research programs. She has been doing it for years. And she's an experienced manager of international research projects and also a researcher herself. So I would say that she bridges the two sides that are so important for us if we want to succeed. Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my presentation now. Okay, hopefully it all works. Thank you, Augie. Thank you, Tamara. That was it's wonderful to come speak after you because you lay the groundwork so well. There have been hundreds upon hundreds of people registered for this webinar, and there's hundreds of you already here. And I will go out on a limb and assume that at least some of you have been to the previous webinars in this series that have been mentioned. So I will try to make sure there's new things, mostly new things, and I encourage all of you to go, if you're interested, go look at the cluster-specific webinars that are all recorded and available on the delegation's YouTube channel, as well as other resources. Okay, so I have about half an hour, as Aggie said, modestly, to walk you through this whole work program and then tell you how to succeed, which is entirely, completely doable. So here we go. So where do we start? Eligibility. And I think this is something, we've been talking about Horizon Europe for 18 months now, if not more, in Canada, really quite intensely. And this is something that I have conversations I've been having literally all over the country. And these are some of the things that people still find surprising. For starters, any legal entity can apply for funding and get their participation in Horizon fully funded. That means for-profit businesses. That means all sorts of research institutions. That means municipal institutions. That all sorts of things, as long as there is a legal entity. In a very, very theoretical scenario, if your book club is a legal entity, it could theoretically apply as a partner for Horizon Europe, right? You just need that paperwork filled out. What's important is if it's a research and innovation action, and I will explain more about what that exactly means in just a second, but it's just remember that little acronym. And I know we all have too many acronyms in our lives, but this is one of the important Horizon Euro acronyms. If it's a research and innovation action, all participants, all partners have 100% of their costs included and refunded or funded. That includes payroll. Again, that is a big shift of perspective from a lot of Canadian funding, but you can get the full payroll of anyone working on the project. If they are working 100% of their time on this project, 100% of their payroll can be funded through Horizon Europe project. Again, if it's a research and innovation action, an RIA, that applies to all the participants, including for-profit businesses. However, if you are a for-profit business that has applied for an innovation action, which is an IA, only 70% of your participation will be funded. So these are important acronyms to remember, especially if you represent a for-profit business. If you represent something that's not for-profit, it doesn't matter if it's an RIA or an IA, your full participation will be funded. And I'm sorry, I'll just repeat that again, including payroll, right? Your full payroll for the people on the project. And this is, please bear with me, those of you who know about Horizon Europe already. This is the introductory slide for maybe those of you joining us because this might be a new and interesting option for you. But it's really worth mentioning that Horizon Europe Pillar 2, which Canada is associated to and which we are focusing on in these presentations, is very much top-down. You don't come to Horizon Europe Pillar 2 saying, I have this wonderful idea, please fund me. It's the other way around. They come to you saying, we have these challenges we'd like solutions to. And by we, I mostly mean the European Commission here. Can you please come up with brilliant ideas and help us solve these challenges? So it's very top down. I'll show you an example of a call and what that means. But it's not the curiosity-driven research where you come with your own ideas. You have to make sure that whatever it is you're doing is fulfilling a need that has been previously stated by the funder, in this case, the European Commission. And in terms of starting up, this is something Tamara has mentioned, and I'm just going to mention it again because it's really important. Connect with your network. Horizon Europe is not the easiest thing you've ever done in your life. And it's, what they say, teamwork makes the dream work, all that. And the team can be very broadly understood. And when I speak of your network, I mean institutional, all sorts of colleagues, but EU colleagues. At your institution, there likely is someone who's been to some of these webinars before, not you personally, right? Or if you personally, as an administrator, have been, there might be colleagues who are interested in Horizon Europe, but don't really even know where to start. It's worth talking to those people, whether you're a researcher or represent administration. In terms of colleagues, there have been numerous applications submitted from Canada at this point. You likely know someone who's maybe working on an application, who's considered one, even if they're not exactly in your field, even if you don't necessarily want to submit an application with them, just this experience exchange of that conversation can be really useful. And it's, again, not a lot of work. And finally, EU colleagues. I can't stress this enough. If honestly there was ever a time to strengthen our relationship with the EU, this is the time. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, even Prime Minister Carney was mentioning, more exports to places other than the US recently. And this is one of those areas where partnership with the EU is an absolute win-win for everybody. And it's really worth reaching out to those of EU colleagues you may already have, you may have met at some events, and just letting them know Canada is associated to Horizon Europe. They might know this already, but just getting a very quick email from you, nudging them and asking them to, if they're working in any applications, if they want to work together, can really be a professional game changer. I would also, in this context, encourage you to consider going to events in the EU in terms of conferences and just making sure, or any sort of professional meetings, that networking can be absolutely a key to making sure that successful applications can be submitted. Just having that in-person conversations, there's some magic to it. And I highly encourage you to consider going to events in the EU. Okay, work program. The table of contents is your friend. That may sound like a very obvious statement, and maybe you begin everything you read with the table of contents, and then I apologize for this obvious comment, but it's a really good place to orient yourself and to give you an idea of what you're in for, because you might think that it's obvious which cluster you should go for. There are 6 clusters, and you might think, I'm a climate researcher, I should go for the climate cluster. Yes, but also it's likely that there are actually calls that could pertain to your research in at least 2 or 3 other clusters. And I highly, highly encourage you to look, actually, if you're an administrator or a researcher, to at least go through the table of contents of every single one of these work programs if you're thinking about this seriously, or you have an hour to kill and want something to do. Because this is the span of projects is much wider than you would think just by looking at what the name of the cluster. And what's important is that you are always, to remember, you are always a part of a consortium with these things. And so, these consortia are rarely fewer than 5 institutions, often closer to a dozen. And that's because there's a lot of things that these projects need to deliver on. And it's never something one institution, or honestly 2 or 3, can reliably deliver on. What the Commission wants is the best people in the world to come together, or the best people in the world in terms of associated countries and low and middle income countries in terms of being funded, come together. Because also important note, any low and middle income countries that you're partners with, their participation can also be fully funded through Horizon Europe. So please keep that in mind. So anyway, all these people come together, and you've got the best of the best in every field, and they come together to solve this problem together, making kind of, the sum of the parts greater. The sum greater than the parts, sorry. So you don't actually need to be able to do everything in a call, but you really want to be able to do that one thing really well and not try to twist your research to fit it. You want to fit. What we say is that the description of the research that needs to be delivered on, I'll show you that in a sec, it's not so much a wish list as a to-do list. It's not a pick and choose kind of thing usually. Importantly, you can be a participant or a partner in more than one call. It's not an exclusive kind of thing. You can apply for numerous applications even at the same time. And I have personally been involved in applications where, especially in two-stage calls, where a institution is a lead in one application, and, for example, a partner in another application for the same call. That doesn't often happen, but there's nothing to make that impossible. Importantly, you can apply for multiple different calls at the same time as a partner if that's something that is available and interesting to you. Partnering is a big deal, and building those relationships, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but you can't get very far without making sure you have partners or have been approached to partner with someone. This is very, very much a collaborative effort. It's never, one institution is the leader and they usually have some of the capacity, but it's never about having the whole capacity, and it's about making sure these partnerships work. In terms of the application details, again, I encourage you to look at the past webinars because we've kind of gone through that, and I don't have time to do this, and some new things in that, and it's all there. So please go look at that. Okay, so in terms of looking at the work program, and again, I apologize to those of you who know this, but I realize many don't. So I just want to make sure this is the really important part, so let's make sure we're all on the same page. This is a call from cluster 4, and you can see that it says Horizon. I don't know if you can see my mouse, if I can have a pointer here. But it says Horizon Cluster 4, CL4, that means Cluster 4, 2025, the year that you have to submit the application. And here the important things, those are detailed, but the important things to move through is then it says 2-stage. And if it says 2-stage, it will always say that right there in the title. That means this is a response of the European Commission to some of the feedback they have gotten, because these applications, as I'm sure if you've heard anything about Horizon Europe, you've heard that it's a lot of work. And the 2-stage means that it's less work. For example, you don't submit a full budget, you don't submit work packages, you just submit your general idea for the first stage, your partners, which can be blinded or not blinded, but anyway, you have to have them, and a general idea of how much money you'll need. And that's it. It's a 10-page essay at that point if it's a 2-stage. For the first stage, you need to submit a 10-page essay talking about your research, and only if it's qualified for the next stage do you have to do more work, like the full, work package, description, everything. And the general statistics are that if you get to the second stage, you're 30 to 50% likely to get the funding. So at that point, putting in all that work actually feels like so much more effort put into something you might get, right? So there we go. Here it says type of action, research and innovation action. It says that here. That's the RIA. Here, if it's an innovation action, it will say IA. There's also a CSA, which a CSA is usually building on, it's a support action, communication and support actions, and it's usually building on previous applications. So in terms of being a newcomer to Horizon, I would encourage you to look at research and innovation actions and innovation actions. You might also be invited to join a CSA, but it is very much initiated 90% of the time, I would say. At the very least, CSAs are initiated by previous projects, and it's sort of a continuation where you get there's additional support provided. But the RIAs and the IAs, innovation and research innovation actions, are what you really want to be looking at. And now so we've gotten that. We know it's a two-stage. We know what it is. And again, if you're a research institution, research and innovation action, you get 100%. Innovation action, you get 100%. Innovation actions are closer to market, higher TRL levels. So if you're a business, you will only get 70% funded. That is the idea behind that. Another important piece of information is here, the Commission tells you how much it estimates the EU contribution of. And what this actually says in plain English, as far as you're concerned, is this is what your budget is supposed to be. Your budget is supposed to be 6 million euro when you write it up. It can be 5.9 million, it could maybe be 6.1 million, but you don't really want to. They're telling you they think should cost 6 million euro. You want to assume they've done their thinking, and you want to really kind of stick to that number. It does say, nonetheless, this does not preclude submission and selection of proposal. Requesting a different amount, but if you do request a different amount, you want to have a really, really good excuse, and I would perhaps at this time not recommend that. Another important piece of information for you is what it says here. It says that the indicative budget, as far as the Commission is concerned, is 30 million. So you can do some very basic maths here and go 30 divided by 6 equals 5. So there will be 5 projects more or less awarded under this call. So that means, importantly, more than one, for example, and that, if it's easier to perhaps try to apply for this than something where not that I want to discourage anyone. It's just I'm walking you through the process I do when I advise people on applying. It usually is, if there's 5 groups that are going to get awarded money, that just statistically gives you a better option of getting that funding as well. Expected outcomes. This is also in the description in the work program. And it says projects are expected to contribute to the following outcomes. And you want to, the details of this at the moment are irrelevant. I'm just showing you what it looks like in the work program. This is what you want to deliver on, right? It's not so much optional as you want to make sure that there are partners in your consortium and work packages and work tasks as part of your proposal that are covering all of this. In one way or another. It's really important because, again, they're being very straightforward with you, right? The Commission, they're telling you, this is what we want. We've highlighted this problem, and this is how we think we can get to solving that. So you don't want to argue with them on it. You want to deliver on what they've asked for. There's also scope, which, again, for practical purposes, as far as you're concerned, is also a list of things. The scope usually comes with a bit of a more theoretical introduction, and then it comes with, again, a list of things the Commission is asking you to deliver on. And here it says the proposal should develop new and or improved materials, right? And they give you a list of things that absolutely you need to do. And then multidisciplinary research activities should address at least 2 of the following. So again, they're very clear with you, at least 2 of the following. However, obviously, it's way better if you can address more of the following, right? 2 is the bare minimum, and just rarely in life does the bare minimum cut it, right? And if you look at the statistics of success rates in Horizon Europe, it's around 20% more or less. So statistically, there's going to be a whole bunch of applications submitted for the same call you applied for. So if the other applications are able to deliver on more of the activities than you are able to deliver on, even if you've delivered on at least 2, you've delivered on 3 out of 5 here, and someone else is delivering on 5 out of 5, chances are, again, this is what they want. Someone says they can do all of that, they are more likely to get funded. This is where the consortium becomes really important. This is why you want to bring together the best people who can deliver on all that the Commission has asked for. And it's not necessary every time to deliver on all of it. And I've seen successful projects which haven't delivered on 1 of 2 of the things that were asked for. But again, to be very honest, practical, and there's no statistics on this per se, this is just speaking from experience, rarely is, you can skip 1 or 2, but rarely more. So just in terms of being very practical and giving you advice, I would try to make sure that you can deliver on all of these, at least, or skip 1 or 2 at most. In a list of 5, I would skip safely. I would advise people to maybe leave 1 out, but not more. Okay, partnership building. Tamara has given you some ideas here, and just a call out to ISET again. There's, for example, matchmaking events. There's one about the Arctic that's been announced coming next month. So these are great opportunities. I highly encourage you to look into that if this is something that would be useful for you. And thank you to ISET for hosting those. There are also networking opportunities hosted by different clusters and the contact point network directly in Europe. You can go to the websites. All of that is linked in the cluster-specific presentations that we have prepared. I want to say last year. It wasn't actually last year. It was before the summer. Apologies. So that's all there. You can go look at it, or just, Google's your friend there too. You want to ask your contacts. Reaching out to the people who already know you is, always very useful. And networking. I know I've said it, but it's important. I'll say it again. Please consider events in the EU, connecting with European colleagues in some way, making sure you can get your research out there. What to watch out for? I would just like to raise this because I've been contacted by a number of people asking me about this. And I just want to be very clear to those of you who are maybe new to Horizon Europe, being approached by consultants or companies offering to put you on applications if you pay them is not standard procedure. This is not something that people do or should be doing. To be honest, I wouldn't recommend joining a consortium in this way by paying upfront to someone who says they'll put you on an application. I'll just leave it at that. There are sometimes consultants who will take, for example, a fee for assisting. It's usually the lead application or something that's a fuller package of assistance around Horizon Europe. And sometimes there's also a success fee taken off, but it's usually off the lead applicant, sometimes off the partners, but then it's a success fee. So once the application is successful, then there's a fee. So just a heads up about that. In terms of replying to emails, please do that. You would be surprised how much happens if I'm sure most of you, all of you hopefully reply to emails, but it's incredibly useful in terms of partnerships. There'll be a lot of questions. People, if you start considering joining a consortium or joining a consortium, emails will be flying back and forth at some point. And some of them might feel overwhelming, and you might be thinking, didn't I just say that? Or why are they asking me about this again? Keep replying, keep asking questions, keep reminding them you're new to Horizon Europe and that you'd be grateful for any assistance, because this communication is vital in any application process. And if you want help, please ask for it, again, even from your partners, but make sure you don't let that communication break down because you think there's too much or you're overwhelmed or you're not quite sure what they're asking for. Because until the application is submitted, it's, everything's up in the air. And if people realize that maybe you're not as responsive as they need you to be, they can maybe, I don't want to be brutal, but perhaps replace you because, again, both at the application stage and then when the project is happening, you want to work with someone with good communication, right? Both on the admin and on the researcher side, because these two are vital in running, both collaboration between the two are vital in running a successful EU project because, again, the admin is there. So please make sure you need questions, ask questions. You have your NCP network, you have partners in Europe, you have your own institution, please ask questions. In terms of the work packages, it's really important to understand that it's a co-design process. I've also received questions from Canadian institutions, for example, about, someone's approached me and they want me to write a work package. Sure, and if they want you to lead that work package, great, but you should never have to do that in isolation from the rest of the project. If it's done in isolation from the rest of the project, it's not going to be well written. It's not going to fit well. It's not going to be delivering on everything it needs to deliver. So these things should really be worked on together, co-designed together. The way it often happens is there's a project description. It gets split into work packages generally by a lead on the project, and then the work package details get hashed out by the work package lead in collaboration with task leaders. But it's very much a collaborative effort because that is really the only way to ensure that it's going to be a well-written application. There's also writing the application itself. There's the stage 1 and stage 2. Like I said, stage 1 it's best compared maybe to an LOI in Canadian sort of research funding on the scene. It's a 10-page essay, more or less, and it really requires so much less work. Then by stage 2 is when you have to do all the work. If it is a one-stage application, well, then you have to do all of it at once. So just be sure you know which one it is and what it is you need to write. There are also different templates for a 2-stage versus a 1-stage. So make sure you're downloading the right template of the tenders and funding portal. It has all the acronyms you need. You just need to make sure you're following all the acronyms. It's a collaborative institutional effort, both within and without your institution, right? You should be working together in terms of, for example, the budget. Researchers should not be working on the budget on their own. It should be with support, at the very least, the budget, right? Think of your commenting and feedbacking system. How are you going to work in it? Is Google Docs enough? Do you want to do something different? Because there is going to be a lot of commenting and feedbacking as you work on these documents. Do you need additional partners? That's something that comes up quite a bit. As you're working through the description of your project, you realize, oh, it'd be great to have someone who covers this base. And you talk and you brainstorm and you think, and then you can maybe get people to join. It's very normal to get people joining applications as they go along. Very rarely is a consortium established at the very beginning and just continues in that form till the end. So be open-minded and give yourself the room and your partners the room to add additional people to the project. And it's a much better thing to write out what you think should happen and then think about whether you need people and then add people, rather than just write around the team you do have. If you feel like you're limiting yourself because you're lacking expertise in a particular area, you should be reaching out to other colleagues and not limiting the scope of the research. Again, communication is really important. Please don't leave submission till the last minute. It's not a great idea. Make sure you've got all the contact details, the contact person for particular institutions. It should all be there. And on the tenders, funding and tenders portal, you can submit very many times and it just takes the latest version. It's always better to submit like a little too early and then resubmit than not submit at all. And I've got the turtle and the rabbit or bunny or whatever, well, that thing there, the rodent, because it feels like you sometimes have 6 months, a year, and it feels like it's taking all this time just to get maybe the first version, or your colleagues aren't coming back to you with the comments on the work package. But then there are moments when time just speeds up and it's 2 weeks before the submission and you're like, how, when, now, this, all of it, right? So it really comes and feels very different at different parts of the application project. And my most useful advice here is be prepared, and also be prepared to sometimes be frustrated for it to take a while, but know that you might have to sprint, and make sure that if you're sprinting with all your paperwork done and that you've kind of lined it up as much as you can. This is the budget. I think I have a few more minutes. Please correct me, Agi, if I'm wrong. But this is what the budget looks like. Importantly, again, no in-kind, and the little asterisk there is for those of you in innovation actions that are for-profit businesses. That is the only time we need to provide that 30% that's missing. Otherwise, there is no in-kind. And apologies to those of you who have heard me say this over and over, but this is a reoccurring challenge with some Canadian institutions where this is so different to what they're used to. They just feel that they have to provide the in-kind. This is just the way things work with research funding. What do you mean no in-kind? I honestly mean exactly that. Just don't do it. It's not, there really isn't room for that in the budget. If you just look at it, there isn't a mechanism for the European Commission to, especially for research institutions, to incorporate that in any way. It makes your application needlessly complex, and it kind of indicates maybe a misunderstanding as to how the funding works. So even, especially including payroll, right? If someone is working, if you have a postdoc 100% assigned to this particular project, the funding should cover 100% of their payroll and all of it, right? And no attempts at in-kind in any form, please. So the only, again, a little asterisk there is with using equipment and purchasing equipment. But that is a detail, really. And it mostly is about the very expensive equipment. And and depreciation costs instead of purchasing costs. That's where the conversation is. It's a very detailed and technical conversation. There has also been an ICIT webinar on that. There's also a lot of information online, so please be free to go and look at it. But the important costs should just be directly through the budget. Also, just a piece of advice here: if you're gonna subcontract something, this is where there are limits imposed by the European Commission, and have a really good long think. Why are you subcontracting and not including them as partners? And by putting in the limits on subcontracting, that is what the Commission wants you to do. They want you to, because also from their perspective, it's just easier and clearer and more transparent if there's partners. And why are you subcontracting and not partnering with these institutions? So again, that is just the one thing to consider in terms of the budget. Other than that, it's really quite straightforward. It's a surprisingly simple table for what you think. Sometimes these projects are, 15 million euro and up, and this is all that you need to actually fill in. You need to think about it, and you need to talk about it in your institution with all your partners. There will be so many discussions, but this is it. This is the table. Thank you. I hope I made it in time.
Yes, you rushed through, but on time. There are already quite a lot of questions in the chat. So Maria will now take the writing role and will answer the questions. So those of you who still have more questions, please do write them because we want to answer as many as we can. And Maria, if there are any questions you want to answer live, we will do so after we hear from our next speaker. So this is my enormous pleasure to invite Cynthia Christie, who is the Assistant Director, International Research in the Division of the Vice President, Research and Innovation at the University of Toronto. And Cynthia is charged with shepherding the researchers towards international grants. And I'm really very honored to have her here to share with us her experience of how this can be done. Maybe you can get inspired.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aggie. Thank you, Maria. Tamara, it's an honor to be here. Before I start, I also want to acknowledge the land. I wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work in this land. So joining a program as complex as Horizon Europe in its midpoint can be comparable to trying to take a train, an unknown train, in an unknown station in a new city. The train is coming fast and will only stop for a brief period. Many of the travelers have taken this train before. They know the city, they know the station, they know what kind of luggage will be allowed, where to stand, how to find a seat. The problem is that there are not enough tickets for everyone. So those who have previous experience will have an advantage. Canadian applicants are the new passengers to this imaginary train. So where many European researchers are familiar with its structures, expectations, and processes, most Canadian researchers have not participated in Horizon Europe. At the University of Toronto, we have been working efficiently to help researchers start this journey by developing resources, designing strategies, and implementing plans to maximize our application success. I will share with you today 5 of these areas of support, and I want to thank the EU delegation in Canada for inviting me to share this with you from an institutional perspective, some of the strategies and successful actions. And I'm going to start with one that includes them. So my first word of advice would be connect with experienced travelers and join their group. About 6 months ago, I was watching the EU delegation webinar on Cluster 5, and I was very interested to learn that one of the speakers Pedro Crespo del Granado from the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, had been involved in 15 EU-funded projects and was coordinating a project funded by Horizon 2020. So Pedro was presenting and giving tips on how to build a successful consortium. And at the end of his presentation, Pedro mentioned that he was putting together a proposal and wanted to include 2 or 3 Canadian partners. He said, "Canada, we need you." And that call really reached me. As soon as it finished, the webinar finished, I sent him an email. He followed up during the following days and weeks until I could talk to him and learn more about the project. Then I took all this information, I took notice of the expertise he was looking for and how he wanted Canada to be involved, and then brought this information to my colleagues at the university in conversation with other staff members who identified professors whose expertise matched the areas of need, and we coordinated the first conversation and the following ones during many months. As a project, as Maria mentioned, projects are like a movable organism throughout the writing period. And at the end, when it coalesced, the participation of the University of Toronto became clear. And as many Pillar 2 projects, it also involved Canadian industry partners. So just to give you some details, this was submitted to a topic in Cluster 5 called Cross-Regional Network and Market Model for Optimization of Long-Duration Storage. The project is titled PowerMax, Enhancing Grid Integration and Optimization of Long-Duration Energy Storage to Synergize Revenue Stream. It is an innovation action. It has 24 partners from 11 countries, and it includes 3 researchers from the Faculty of Applied Sciences and Engineering, and it has a budget of almost 7 million euro. So this success story was generated by this webinar. So these are the first advice, then go and talk to the experienced travelers. So thanks for the EU delegation again for these webinars. A second tip would be find out which cars have available seats. And this connects with Maria's advice. Attend matchmaking events, make connections, follow up with those new contacts, and identify relevant researchers in your institution. And I repeated some of these process thanks to another great opportunity for Canadians, the Bridging the Atlantic webinar series organized by the Canadian government. This happened through the last year. And these virtual matchmaking events specifically targeted Canadian participants, and they are a great opportunity for those of us who are on this side of the Atlantic. After a session on health last March, they also shared the list of participants. So that is golden information for us. I followed up with experienced coordinators who were looking for partners in specific areas, and we ended up finding, again, the right fit for one of those coordinators. The facilitation resulted in another proposal submitted, this time to Cluster 1 Health. Next tip, help with packing. So from the university, we for any institutions that we wish to support their individuals, their employees, you can develop resources, provide guidance, and organize information sessions and webinars. We have a dedicated website. We keep it updated. We have a dedicated email address, meet one-on-one with researchers to advise them, to tell them about opportunities. We organized 7 internal webinars with more than 600 participants from October to March, also to engage internally and spread the word. So help with packing is another important tip. Next tip, drive to the station. So following the example of many European institutions, University of Toronto offers partnership development seed grants supported by the Office of the Vice President International. And these grants cover travel and meeting expenses for researchers to develop and reinforce relationships and work on draft proposals, or just creating networks that could result in Horizon Europe applications. You will also see seed grants provided by SSHRC, by MITAX in Canada, and some European institutions provide similar grants to their researchers, but they could be used also to invite you or invite Canadian counterparts or to visit us and work on those proposals. And the 5th tip would be get a ticket. and complete the trip. So we really at the university support all the administrative and financial processes that are required from the pre-award, so working on the grant, providing editorial review, working on that budget that can be very tricky for our researchers. It's not something that they come across usually. For example, we have lots of questions about the salary and salary remuneration considerations, and we analyze it with them, provide our support. And again, we've learned a lot through our communications with coordinators in Europe. So really, Pedro was a great help. When I had a question about things, he would explain them to me. So all these tips connect with each other. And if the grant is successful, if you get the award, we also provide agreement review and, of course, the administration of the grant. So I'm going to quickly repeat the 5 things that an institution can do. Connect with experienced travelers, so look for opportunities and facilitate those connections with successful coordinators. Find out which cars have available seats, attend matchmaking events, and again, follow up, identify researchers or people who can participate in your institution, help with packing, provide the resources, supports, drive to the station, provide a seed grant funding or some help to start those conversations, and then really go help along the way to complete the trip. This is really a very complex plan, a very complex program, but networking here is key. And I also want to acknowledge all the people in this webinar, because we really work very closely with ISED, with Tamara and her team, and I had also conversations with Maria. So really, we're all in this together. It is a considerable institutional effort, but we know that it will take us to a wonderful destination, and that makes it all worthwhile. Thank you.
Thank you for these inspiring words. I hope that was really worthwhile. I really cannot say it, again, because we are repeating it all the time, that really the key is to get into the networks, to reach out, not to be shy, because you never know what can work. And if your institution can help you, institutions, please, the ones who are listening to us, please get inspired as well. You can also reach out. It's not only on the researchers to reach out. I sometimes think that we put a lot of pressure on the researchers to enter the network, but they can be helped. And this is an important lesson. Okay, so now we are almost at the end of the webinar. I just wanted to ask Maria and Cynthia if there are any questions you want to answer live.
Maybe I'll very quickly. All right, my camera's turning on. Cynthia, thank you so much. That was great. I'm so glad to hear the institutional perspective. Honestly, thank you. But I've been trying to answer all these questions, and one just came up. Will you elaborate on classification of information and research security requirements? That is a long conversation, but the fact of the matter is, as of today, the research security requirements for Canadian institutions by the Canadian government are higher than what the European Commission requires. So if you are in line with federal regulations, you are fine for Horizon Europe. If classification of information, by classification of information, you mean GDPR, so the personal information category, that is something to talk to your legal team about. But I'll just say that, everyone in Europe's done GDPR. It's something you can do. It's not an impossible hurdle, but it's absolutely worth talking to specifically your legal team at your institution about it. How much more? We don't have because I could keep talking and there's questions, but maybe I'll stop talking.
Sorry.
Because there's one more about ERC. Do you want me to do the ERC or not?
Yeah. Please do. As many as you can, because we have a few. Oh, and there is even a question for Cynthia. So do not hesitate to write or to talk, what you prefer.
So many. I'm sorry. I'm so glad there's so many questions. Literally, it's impossible for me as a human to type that fast. But in terms of Pillar 1, because there have been questions about Pillar 1 and Pillar 2, anyone can apply for Pillar 1. There is no exception. Anyone from anywhere in the world, I mean, theoretically Antarctica, anyone can apply, right? However, for most, and that's not all, but for most Pillar 1 contracts, you can only spend the money in Europe. So you can be a Canadian researcher who gets an ERC grant, but you have to go to Europe and work on it in Europe. The difference is for MSCA, Maria Skłodowska-Curie reactions. And there I said, please reach out to MyTax. They coordinate that part of that. For Canada, it's mostly actually, and there's a wonderful team in Euro-Access North America to talk to about Maria Skłodowska-Curie reactions as well. Please reach out to them. They will answer all your questions. They're incredible. Euro-Access North America. Okay, I'll stop now. Cynthia, please, sorry.
Yes, I can take that question. So what size seed development grant is the university providing? I don't know if I can say the exact amount, but I will say it's similar to SSHRC. So the SSHRC Destination Horizon grants, they're not enormous, but they would cover as people going to Europe or coming here, organizing a workshop for a day. So it's not the amount that we see from the European institutions, but it's enough for a year of these actions that can provide support. And then you ask about remuneration of PI. This is a big question, and we've been thinking about it. And something that seems to be useful is to provide researchers with an idea of the personnel month cost. I think this is, you can correct me, it's related to the lump sum grants. So or it can be used for any grants. Okay. So this is something that the institution can do, is that you can calculate the personnel month cost for your researchers to use. So you would take, okay, how much time the professor is going to put into this project, and the postdoc and the doctoral student and technicians, and you put all the monthly salaries and you create an average, and that's going to be what the cost of a month work for that project is equal to. And this would give so much help for the researchers because they really can spend time with that. But again, the question is, are we paid for our contribution to the project? Yes. According to the EU grants, you can be paid, and I would say it would even seem very strange if there's no time allocated to a researcher on a budget. So how is this? They're not charging us for the researcher's time. Are they not working on this project? So really it's another way of thinking on how to budget. And you're even including the benefits. So this is maybe a topic for another webinar, but something that we have, as Canadians, we have to get our heads around and get familiar with this idea.
Absolutely.
So I don't know, Maria, do you want to answer anything else here?
I'm very aware that we're at time. So that's my only concern. Are we at time?
Yeah, I mean, we still have a few minutes. We could maybe talk a little bit about the companies, because we have some questions about the subcontracting of companies and how the companies could apply.
Yes. So just to give you an idea, any company can apply, and that goes from SMEs to huge. I mean, Siemens, the huge, corporation, is a lead on an application in Horizon Europe. And SMEs, it can be a company that employs one person, right? There is no limit. SMEs have actually been allocated 22% of Horizon Europe funding so far. So it's a very big part of it. And There's a very broad definition of SMEs. Subcontracting is generally not recommended to go beyond 15%. I think the official limit is 25, but if you're subcontracting a quarter of your application out, it's going to raise flags with the evaluators. There's going to be a question of why do you require that much subcontracting? If the company you would be subcontracting to is a partner, then that is no longer a problem. So. And that's, again, what the Commission wants you to do. They want you to consider partnering and making these official relationships, transparent relationships, and not the subcontracting. So that's what that is. And I think I answered that question then. Yeah. It says, could you please, because I'm just trying to flip through talk more about the issue with Pillar 1 projects, i.e. they need to be carried out in Europe. Yes, they need to be. If you got an ERC grant at the moment, it needs to be carried out. The money has to be spent at a European institution. You need to be based at a European institution for the purposes of the grant. You can have a joint appointment, but you need to spend at least 50% of your time in Europe working on that grant at the host institution in Europe. And MyTax is useful because MyTax is the organization on the Canadian side coordinating it's called researcher mobility is what it's called. These grants are called. It's responsible for coordinating researcher mobility through Pillar 1 for young researchers. So they are the ones holding those funds and administering them. So they will be able to answer all your practical questions on that. Oh boy, how does one distinguish and protect IP? That is such a huge conversation. I honestly don't think that is another webinar or perhaps 5. But it's a good place to maybe note that Horizon Europe has higher open science requirements than currently the tri-councils have. The tri-councils are moving in that direction. I was just at a conference 2 weeks ago, I think, where they were saying how they're moving in that direction. They're not there yet. And importantly, open science does not preclude IP protection in any way. It's just if you're not protecting your IP, you should be opening up your research. If you can, as open as possible, as closed as necessary. And the idea to protecting IP is always to write up all the IP requirements prior to actually getting the funding. You sign your contract with all your partners about how IP will be divvied up according to institutional, federal, and EU regulations prior to the start of the project. That's key because you want it to be clear and transparent for everyone before the project starts. Thank you.
I wanted to mention just the last thing about success rate is between 18 and 22% for Canadian applicants at the moment. And it's important to say that Canadian success rate also takes into account not only the funded opportunities, but also our participation in programs like the MSCA, the Mercury Solowska actions. So those are still counted as successful, even though maybe the funding didn't reach our Canadian institutions.
However, I have to say that even in Pillar 1 and specifically the fellowships, there is always a possibility of having the money, like overheads, paid to the Canadian institution, and I'm saying this from my personal experience. This is not obligatory, but the fellow can actually choose to do this, as I did. So.
Maybe just one last question to clarify. There's a question is it only ERC grants that require the work to be done in Europe? Can I find a Horizon Europe opportunity where I perform all my work in Canada? Yes, all your work can be performed in Canada for Horizon Europe Pillar 2, but not all the work of the project. You need at least 3 countries, and at least, honestly, 2 of them need to be in the EU. So, but yes, for Horizon Europe Pillar 2, all of your work can absolutely be done based at your institution or company or whatever it is in Canada. Just to clarify.
Okay. So I think that we can end now. I think that there are questions concerning the money, the budget, but in the end, the objective of Horizon Europe projects is not so much to earn the living, but to promote science. So we rarely think about it as the main source of income. It's more to push the boundaries to find the solutions through research to the problems we face as people and our societies. So without further ado, I think we close it. Esther will not say the words. I will invite you to watch that space. We will be inviting you to the webinars in the new year after the new work program is officially published, and we will try to answer the needs that you might have. So please watch your mailboxes. You will be receiving a survey asking not only about your experience with this webinar, but also your expectations and needs for the next ones, so we can provide what you really need. I hope that was useful, and thank you, everyone. And yes, the recording will be shared.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.